All right, well, my clock just ticked over to 4 o'clock Eastern Time, so appreciate you all joining me this afternoon to talk a little bit about Engage, the connecting, the way it can help connect your members and your ministry with the data that you have in CDM Plus, new and exciting ways that you can put your database to work for you in enhancing your ministry. So as we get started, I want to put a poll up here real quick. I just want to see where you are with Engage. If you're already using it, you have members that are using it now, you haven't started yet, but you're just getting ready to, or you're just exploring. Just if you'd answer the poll real quick, we'll take a few seconds. All right. Thank you all so much. So this is largely a group that is really exploring what Engage can do. We did this webinar last Thursday, and just kind of split evenly between the three groups. So certainly want to show you what Engage is all about, how you go about setting it up, and certainly want to answer any of your questions that you have. Right now we've got everybody's microphone muted. You do have the ability to unmute and ask a question. If you do that, fine, but please, unless you're speaking, leave your microphone muted. You can also, an easy way to ask questions is I've got the chat window open. So if you want to type a question into chat, you can go right ahead and type questions in there. I try to keep an eye on it as I'm going through the webinar, through the presentation, but I'll certainly, when we get to the end, leave time that we can ask and answer any questions that we need to. All right, so I'm going to stop my video so that we can see the Engage screen clearly, and let's plow in and take a look at what Engage is and what it can do. It really is a way to help connect your members, your donors, your constituents, not only to the CDM Plus information that's in your database, but also it's a way that members can connect to one another. So it's really connecting to the community that is your church or your organization. And that, in turn, we hope will really help them connect on a deeper level to the work and to the ministry that you're doing. All right, so continuing on, what is Engage? Engage is a website. That's how the tool is driven. And so this enables your members, your constituents, to access the information wherever they are, as long as they have an internet connection with whatever device that they have in their hands. So information in Engage, the tools of Engage can be used from desktop and laptop computers. Folks can use these from their smartphones and from other mobile devices as well. Engage is designed to be responsive to the device, to the screen size that's being used, and so it makes it very convenient for whatever happens to be at your fingertips. You're able to access information and connect with the work and ministry of the church or organization. There are currently 4 programs that are part of Engage, and what you have access to is going to depend some on what you've ordered for Engage, and it also depends some on what the CDM Plus configuration is that you have, which components of CDM Plus that you've purchased. Engage Member is a membership portal, and so this really gives your members, your donors, your constituents access to a real-time pictorial directory with contact information and information about small groups, access to whatever you give access to small groups, to active membership, however you choose to set that up, and we'll go into that. Engage Giving is an online giving tool for your members, your donors, your constituents. Again, it's very responsive, so folks can, from their phones, from their tablets, at events, during worship services, are able to make their giving online quickly, easily, and conveniently. Engage Giving is also the foundation for the text giving product that we just introduced a couple of months ago. Engage Payroll lets employees of the church log into their Engage account, and they're able to look at their payroll history and see past payrolls, see totals. No need to hang on to check stubs. This is very handy if your church is using direct deposit payroll. Again, makes it easy for your employees to go in and look at that history. The newest Engage program is Engage Events, and this ties into CDM Plus event registration and lets members through their Engage accounts log in and register quickly and conveniently for events and activities that your church is putting on. So remember that Engage is a website. It's not an app, so Engage is not something that you download from the App Store or Google Play. If you've been using the CDM Plus mobile app, that is an app from the App Store from Google Play. But Engage is driven by a website. And so you create the address for the website that your church uses by providing a short code. Sometimes I call it a slug, but it's a little bit of text that is easy to remember, but that also uniquely identifies your church. And then when you've created that, you provide that link to your members, and then that's what gives them access to the Engage site. Now, where you do that is you create on the Engage link, if you're using web ministry tools, you'll go into Web Ministry Tool Administration, wmt.saran.com, and you'll see this Engage button here. And so you go to that Engage section, and then you type into this box here that short code or a little bit of text. So, for example, if I'm doing this for First Community Church of Big City, I might type in here FCC Big City. And now that becomes the URL for your church, for that church's Engage site. And so the members here would go to engage.saran.com/FCC Big City. When you do this, you're also creating a giving URL. So this is something that you can turn into a QR code, put on the bulletin, put on cards in the pews, put as a link to Give Now on your website that takes people right to the giving section of Engage. And again, they can make online gifts quickly and conveniently. When they go to that address, engage.saran.com, and your little bit of text, your short code, then that takes them to this Engage login screen. And once they have their account created, they'll enter their username and password and then have access to the functions and the tools available in Engage. If they're coming in for the first time and need to create an Engage account, then they just tap on or click this Create Account link that's sitting here underneath the Sign In button. And that takes them through the steps that they need to create their Engage account and get started. Now, these member accounts, yes, Sean, you have a question?
Yes, I do. We are currently, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We are currently using the Engage app for our member directory. Mm-hmm. We've got a connection to it through our mobile app, which is another platform that we've used the URL to connect to the Engage app.
Okay.
Or the Engage website. We're having trouble with the Create an Account button due to the fact that some of our church members who download our church app have access to the website. They create an account and it goes into the backside of CDM and will create an address record for them within the system. And it's duplicating our address accounts, or our address records, excuse me. So we'll have a fully developed address record for them. And then they go in and create an account. It creates another one, and we have duplicate.
And the second bullet on the screen is really getting at that, and you'll see here in just a minute. One thing that you want to do before you really get started deeply with Engage, and now what I'll need to do is kind of talk you through how do we clean some of this up. We want to make sure that we have current email addresses in the database. So these member accounts, these Engage accounts, tie into your CDM database through the individual record. So we actually will store the username, their password, but that's all connected to the individual record. Now you can see the username, and that's a question of going into administration, getting permission to manage those Engage credentials. And then on the name tab of the user record, you can see the Engage username that somebody has created. So the member comes in to create an account, which really means create their username and password for us to store on the individual record. The first thing that Engage asks them for is an email address. And that's so that we can look them up in your database. So if I go to that engage.saran.com link, I click Create Account, Engage is going to turn around and ask me for an email address. And so the only thing Engage does with that is then goes into your CDM Plus database and looks for that email address attached to an individual record. So this is the caution that I give folks. Before you start, make sure that you have current email addresses and make sure that those are connected to individual records in your database. If you have an email address that's shared by a household or by a family, that's not a problem. Connect that same email address to multiple individual records, because after this point, Engage is going to use their username and password to get into the account. Again, the email address is just to look them up and say, hey, does this person exist in the CDM Plus database? There's information on our knowledge base that's really designed for you to share with church members or others on how to create and set up their Engage member accounts. The first link there, kb.cdmplus.com, create Engage account, is really a link to a video that walks them through. It's about 3.5 minutes long. Walks them through the whole process of setting up an Engage account. And then the second link is basically the same information, but it's in print form. It's a series of web pages on our knowledge base. Again, the idea is to help your church members walk through the process of creating member accounts. So I'll be sharing, we're recording the webinar, and so you'll get an email from me that has a link to the recording, and I will also send you these two links. Once they're logged in, then Engage Member provides this online real-time pictorial directory. And so your members are going to have access to their information. So you can see in my example here, we logged in as John Smith. So I've got access to my information, which includes my address, and the information of other members of my household. I'm able from Engage to update my contact information. So I don't necessarily have to call the church office anymore and say, hey, I've got a new phone number or I have a different email address to use. Now I can update that information myself. So it puts more of that out in the hands of your church members. Now, church members can only change their information. They can't change contact information for other people. But they can view that contact information. So, for example, if I go over to the My Groups tab, I can see what small groups I'm a member of. So, for example, I might see my Sunday school class, and I'll be able to see all the members there, and I can tap on one of those names. It will take me to their profile, where if I've got an email address for them, or I can tap on that and compose an email right out of Engage. Or if there's a phone number, I can tap on the phone number if I'm on my phone, and it will dial and place the call. So I'm able to place calls and send those emails just directly from my phone or from my mobile device. I'm sorry for using an example that has these silhouette icons in it. These pictures would actually would be the picture that is attached to the individual record in your database. A future enhancement to Engage is going to allow members to upload their own photos as well. We haven't implemented that yet, but it's in our plans to develop that. And again, as we're going along, if you have questions, don't hesitate to type a question into the chat, or raise your hand and let me know. We'll make sure we get your questions answered. So one other thing that you're going to want to consider before you get started with Engage is what groups and codes from CDM Plus membership should be visible. So you probably have in your database lots of groups, lots of codes, classes, membership code, membership status, various groups within the church. You've probably set up a lot of those and have individuals attached to them. So you might want to think a little bit about, what do I actually want visible in Engage? Because I know in my own experience, sometimes I've created groups that I wouldn't necessarily want to expose to the whole church. So that's just something to think about as you're getting ready to get started in Engage, because that My Groups tab is really controlled by the groups that you have set up in CDM Plus and what you have told Engage to use to check against or to expose to folks. The place to do it is to think carefully about what groups you have set up in the database that you want, that you would be able to share contact information. For example, one thing that's available to you is church position. So this is a good way you can have the group of church positions so that all your senior ministers are in a list. Your various teams like your regional board or your anti-racism team. And again, just kind of take a look at what's in your database and think through what we expose to folks. The way you do that is over here on, again, I'm back in the WMT. Yeah, you can certainly keep other groups hidden. Again, this is the place where we're going to tell Engage what groups, what codes, what lists are going to be able to be seen. So on that wmt.saran.com administration page for Engage, there's this checkbox that says allow access to all groups, and I will tell everybody, and I'll say it 3 or 4 times, think very, very carefully about it before you check that box. Because checking that box really does make everything available. So whatever groups I am a part of, and Kathy, this kind of gets to your question too. I'm not exposing, I could possibly, but again, we're looking within groups. So the only groups that I'm able to see are the groups that I'm a member of. So for example, if I'm not a member of the regional board, I wouldn't see the regional board group. But I would really, rather than doing access to all groups, I would select the groups that we really want to see. So for example, in this right-hand selected groups column, we've chosen the group board members from church leadership. So again, if I'm a member of the church board, I go to the My Groups tab, I will see board member there, and I can tap that and see the members of the board. If I'm not a member of the board, I won't see that. I've also chosen a couple of church groups, the adult choir, the Stephen ministers. And think about how you're using the fields for membership code and membership status, because this is a good way that you could actually expose contact information for active members. But say an active member moves away, we might change that status to former. Well, we haven't deleted their Engage account, but we have then taken away access to all the active member contact information. So what's available to me on that My Groups tab, let me run back to where that, if I tap this My Groups, what's available to me there is only the groups that I am a member of. So the connection to CDM Plus, again, through the individual records, we use the email address to look people up, just to say, do we already have an individual record for you in this database? And like we heard from Sean, if we don't find that match, we will still let them go ahead and create an account, but we may create some duplicate information in the process just because we didn't find that email address, didn't have it current, or didn't have it linked to an individual record. You can also see that we use those groups and codes. We'll use things like membership code, membership status, any groups that you've set up. Church school class is another group that we can use. Again, what do we want to give folks access to? And we'll also, for Engage Giving, use the giving unit, and we'll look at that again. Engage is driven off of the individual, so we'll want to see giving units as connected to individual records. Let's see, Amanda, is there any way a member, when setting up their individual profiles, can select opt for a more private profile? We have several members who would not want others knowing their telephone numbers. The only way we can control that at this point is through what groups folks are a member of. The other thing you can do, if folks don't want their phone numbers shared or email addresses shared, then on the phones or emails tab, mark those numbers unlisted. They will see them themselves, but nobody else will see them. So there's a couple of options about that as well. I don't think they have the ability to set unlisted for themselves yet, but we'll be working on that. But certainly if folks don't want their phone, and this would be true when you're printing reports out of CDM Plus as well. If folks don't want phone numbers shared, we need to have those marked as unlisted. What your members can do once they get into Engage, if they touch on this little menu icon up here in the upper right, then that's going to open up this menu for them. And there they can tap on, if they tap on Giving, that's going to take them over to Engage Giving. If they tap on Events, that will take them to Engage Events, where they can register for events or activities. We don't see payroll in here because John Smith is not set up as an employee at the church. So he doesn't have any payroll information to look at, so we don't put that option on the menu. So Engage Giving will, from logged in users, if folks, like I've logged into Engage, so now the system knows who I am and I make a gift, then that contribution is stored directly in my database. We don't have to go through that pending contributions process to match a gift up to a giving unit and then process it. We already know that. And we can provide a choice of giving funds. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the basis for text giving, where your church members now can text the word give to a phone number and go through and make a gift that way. We have some exciting enhancements to text giving coming out first week in May. They can also look at their giving history, the most recent online gifts that they've made, and for all of those, there's a Give Again button, so they can just tap on that. Again, we want to make it as quick, as convenient for folks that have a desire to give, that have a desire to support the work and ministry of your church, make that as easy as possible, keep as many barriers down as we can. So that Give Again button is a very handy way to make my guests and practice regular stewardship and regular generosity. Engage Payroll does require the CDM Plus Accounting module with Payroll. And what you can do there is then connect an employee information record to an individual record. Then if that individual creates an Engage account, they can log into that. They'll have Payroll available on their menu. They can go in and look at their payroll history online. Bless you. Bless you. Engage registration or Engage events, also it requires the CDM Plus event registration module, and would also require the event registration web ministry tool. What this lets you do is when you create a single event registration tool, now you go to the publish option on that. There's now a checkbox down at the bottom of that screen that says publish this event to Engage. When you check that on, when somebody goes to that events link off of their menu, they'll see a list of all the upcoming events for which you've checked that box on to publish to Engage. They tap the register button. Again, they're logged in. So we're connected to their individual record, and so they go to that registration form with their information already filled in. So they can register themselves. They also have the ability to register other people as well.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Okay.
I wasn't sure how to I sent a group chat, but I guess you didn't get it. It was I'm sorry.
I'm just now seeing it. It's not coming up as an option.
Yeah, so it's weird. On the Engage Payroll, so the payroll option isn't coming up.
You'll want to make sure that his employee information record is connected to his individual record. That's all I have as far as slides, presentation time. Certainly want to take whatever time you all want to answer questions. Again, we've been recording this, so I'll send a follow-up email that will have a link to the recording. It will have a link to to that video and to the web page that talks about how members set up their accounts. And I'll also provide a link to a PDF of the presentation slides that I used.